So how do you begin to write surrealist poetry, if I can name surrealist poetry or poetry as surrealist, but how do you get in?
Well, it took me, I became a poet at a young age, 15 maybe. I knew that's what I wanted to do. How to do it, learning how to do it, finding a way into it, that's something else. Of course, young poets mostly mimic older poets. You find your voice that way. You read someone you like, you write like that person a little bit, and you go on to the next, and finally you realize you don't have to write like anyone except yourself. I had learned to write as Allan, but the poetry I was writing was not free enough, and that was a problem. It wasn't until I moved to San Francisco and met an exceptional American surrealist poet, first American surrealist poet by the name of Philip Lamontia, that it became clear that something else had to happen on the page. And that something else we know as automatism. But how to write in a way that interdicts the creative will, how to write completely neutral, it's very difficult. The mind intercedes, the body intercedes, memories come, you stop, you can't stop. One night, struggling with this issue for some time, I heard a voice. And that voice said to me, "Your voice is legion, take wing." And that line became the first line of the first automatic poem I ever wrote. It was something that simply came out of the night. That's how it happened. It wasn't me inventing it. It came to me. And I think most successful surrealist poets sustain in some way a relationship to that voice that comes to them. They don't own it, and sometimes it's very difficult to precipitate its appearance. But at least you're open to it. And that's the most important thing, being open to it. That very faint suggestion that leads you to take this thing and put it on this little piece of paper here and start scribbling. Now, I don't write automatically much anymore. I don't think you need to in terms of surrealism, because there's something else that became more important to me, and the term is oniric. Oniric is a Greek word that means the interpretation of dreams. It's not a rational interpretation. It's sirenic. It comes from the sirens who sing. You listen, and they inspire. So for me, automatism is a medium to find a way into an oniric sensibility. It's not just the mind. It's the mind and the body together. Psychophysical union. And from that axis, many things can happen. And that's basically how it happened.
So you have to be aware for objective chance. You have to...
Objective chance is very important.
To feel it in that moment.
Yes. You have to be available to it, open to it. If you're not, it's gone. That chance moment is gone. And what it means is gone. So.
You are also a playwright. So can you discuss a little about surrealist poetry and dramatic texts? That's great.
Yeah. So, when you write, you sit at a desk, or you have a piece of paper, you're at a computer, and it's you and the computer, or you and a piece of paper. It's internal. When you write for the theater, it's social. There are people talking to each other, moving in space, and that's another element. Space. So It's a completely different medium, and it took me quite a long time to understand exactly how to create a surrealist play. But I started by trying to use the same language in the surrealist poems I was writing, that's dense, metaphorical, convulsive language, to mean something very simple. So, for example, one of the lines I read in one of these poems would mean in a play, I'd like a glass of water. How do you transmit that? That was the problem. How do you transmit it in terms of understanding two people, understanding each other, a dialogue, and also how do you transmit it in terms of using this space, and then for actors, the body. So it's writing for the stage in a language that could be called surrealist is eminently possible, but you have to do it for the stage. It can't simply be done for the page. And when you put it in a body, and that body moves through space, it changes everything. Not only that, but many times in the scripts I would give to actors and directors, their response was, I can't say this. And my response was, yes, you can. And their response was, no, I can't. I don't know what it means. Find out what it means. Impossible. No, it isn't. Yes, it is. No, it isn't. And you know what? They won. I lost. But the play gained, because theater is a social act. It's a collective act. It's not a solitary act. And it was also a way for me to bridge the solitude of poetry, which can sometimes be crushing in a culture that does not recognize the work you do in the way you want it to be recognized, or that has very little capacity to recognize the work you do. So theater is a way to overcome your isolation and to find a new language that's linguistic, text, and physical. I really love it. It taught me many, many things. I think the most important thing it taught me was humility, because many things I wrote were stupid for the theater.
One of the way that you are provoked for poetry, it's playing games, surreal games. So I remember one of our first contacts. You proposed to make games in distance using words and to create images. Would you like to talk us about that kind of games?
Oh, yeah.
You made with Lena, and all situations that at the Boost of Love were published. Would you talk about that?
Yeah, I played a game with Rick, Lena, called it's a very simple game. It's called the word game. Surrealist activity is usually collective activity, and the games are extremely important, simply because we love to play. But play is serious when you do it a lot. The word game takes 1 month, 5 weeks. Takes 5 weeks. You can extend it further, but a month is enough usually. Once a week, you send to the other player a word. You write something to that word, or you draw an image, you take a photo, you create a piece of music. If you're a dancer, you create a choreography. If you're a sculptor, you build something. The other person uses that word. The next week, that person sends you a word, and you do this 4 times. Then you collect what you've done, you look at it, and you find a way to construct a sentence with the words that you use. And that sentence becomes the conclusion to the game, or it can promote an entire text of its own, or an entire image, or what have you. Another interesting game is called Parallel Walks, and you can play this international. This is a problem. Rick was in Amsterdam. I was in New York. How do you play a game? Well, that thing. Yes, that's important. You could do it by letter too. You don't need that. Parallel Walks is a wonderful game where I would send to you, if you were in Lisbon, a map of New York with a walking route outlined, and you would send to me a map of Lisbon with a walking route outlined. We would say on Sunday at 3 o'clock, different cities, we're going to take the walk. You take a camera, you need to document it. So you take a pair of dice, you throw a pair of dice, 6 train, 2 stops, or 2 train, 6 stops. You get out, you look at the map of Lisbon, I'm in New York now, and I start, 3 blocks, I take a left, I walk 2 blocks, I take a right, and so on and so forth. And you document what you see, but the key to this game is documenting only neutral things, not something you like, not something you hate, because the image that you will then send to your compatriot really has to be simple and clear, neutral. Neutral images allow for greater poetic penetration. I've learned that through the years. You take your walk, and the effect is complete disorientation. You have walked on this street 1,000 times, but really this is the first time you're walking on this street. The city changes for you. It opens up. Simple things become big things. A postal box becomes a robot. A stop sign becomes a totem. Things like this can happen. You exchange your images, and then you write texts to the images, and you construct what could be a book. And there are other games. You can make up your own games, and it's wonderful to do. So.
Yes, we have an example, hippocampus,
Yeah.
something like that. We made together. Isto foi uma edição nossa do Bruce Bluff, que foi feita mais ou menos nestes moldes, mas utilizámos uns seres marinhos muito curiosos, que são os cavalos marinhos, do seu nome específico, científico, hippocampus. Curiosos porque, ao contrário dos restantes elementos do mundo animal, são os machos que recebem os ovos nas suas bolsas, depositadas pelas fêmeas, e depois são os machos que tratam de dar alimentação às crias. E por isso mesmo, à distância, mais ou menos nestes moldes, fizemos um jogo desses, que foi de que isto resultou, em 2008. Os outros jogos desta natureza são frequentes no movimento e permitem-nos sempre explorar aquilo que o Breton chamou do maravilhoso. E, de certa forma, é isso que se procura na poesia, o encantamento através do maravilhoso.
The title for this, Carolyn and I were at the beach. I said, I need a title for this collaboration. What should it be? She said, well, seahorse, hippocampus. That's how it came. Yeah. So,
It was a nice game.
yes, it was a beautiful game. So,
Querem colocar alguma questão? Por favor, estejam à vontade. Ou querem propor algo, um jogo, não sei.
thank you very much for coming. It's wonderful to have you, and it's great to be here. This is a fabulous place. And there's a very rich poetic culture here. Continue it, please. It's up to you. I'm going back to New York. There are some books up here if you like. They're for sale, and my agent here will do the justice for it. Thank you.